I'm Dave Palumbo, founder of Species Nutrition. From my earliest bodybuilding days, I believed in only putting the best in my body. And that lives on in the Species Nutrition line of products. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
Hey guys, we're super excited to be here at the LA Fit Expo. It's our third year in a row. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be launching the Tasty Pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs. And we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
RX Television on rxmuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave. As always, your weekly 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Whatever's on your mind, diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, news, whatever's on your mind, it is all on the table as we now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, our last episode till Christmas. So, of course, between Species Nutrition, we have a sale. We can't announce exactly what it is yet, but we do have a bonanza of a sale to be announced pre-Christmas. And then, of course, our good friends at Titan Medical with their own offerings for Christmas and the New Year's.
Yeah, you know, it's I can't believe Christmas is here already. It feels like we just started the New Year's and now we're going on to another New Year already. So it's all good. It was a rough year, you know, and I'm glad we got all the bodybuilding shows off the ground. But it looks like you guys are getting hit pretty hard in New York with COVID and another wave. As my doctor would say, he says that this is going to become like the flu. It's not going away. It's going to lose some of its virulence maybe, and won't be quite as as far as people dying from it. But it's going to be like another flu shot you need to get every year. That's
I mean, right now in New York, the situation is such that if you drive by any say little mini plaza that has an urgent care, that line is going to be around the entire plaza right now. And I'm on Long Island. I'm 10 minutes from Bev's Gym, so the suburban area.
Yeah.
But in the city, it's even worse. Obviously, in the city, they're all living on top of one another, so it spreads even quicker there. But there, my brother lives in the city. He's telling me that any urgent care, any clinic, facility, what have you, lines are. I mean, it's like you're talking just exactly what it was about a year and a half ago. So it's getting there. My hope, and I know the hope of the bodybuilding world, is that we're not going to have any shutdowns. I heard in Canada they're going to start having some rolling shutdowns again.
I heard.
Yeah, so it's not good. But
I told my friends in Canada, I said, you guys are like Australia. You're pretty much. I think Australia actually has it better than you guys.
What are you going to do? I mean, I know we had had a lot of conversations about this during the course of the initial pandemic. I don't know which pandemic we're talking about. The initial pandemic where, gyms were closed down and people were having to resort to home workouts, alternative home workouts. I mean, you remember that video Chris Bumstead made, lifting his couch or whatever. I mean, that's what people had to resort to. I know one of your friends, literally went to Home Depot and started inventing his own gym equipment or whatever. But I know myself and a lot of other people, took that time to really invest in home gym equipment, knowing that this could be a thing of the future going forward. And with gym closures, what are you going to do, right? So
that's what I suggest people do.
It's a rough time again. Hopefully things aren't going to get as affected now. And then hopefully, as far as bodybuilding, scene is concerned, I mean, we just had two big announcements this week, Dave. The Dubai Pro, that's going to be put up by our good friends at Oxygen Gym. So Botter and the whole Camel crew, they're putting up that show. They don't do anything halfway. So that's going to, and we went to Dubai 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Everything there is over the top, immaculate. So you can only imagine that show is going to be off the hook. And then, of course, yesterday, the announcement, the Boston Pro. So we saw that Jay Cutler is going to be making an appearance. So it's good that, we're going to get some normalcy again, and hopefully nothing's going to be affected. But before I interrupted, if you want to carry on about the offering from Titan Medical.
Yeah, I forgot what I was even going to say. I had a couple of comments. I don't even remember what I wanted to say anymore, but look, the bottom line is that, with regard to the virus, I thought I had an exposure, and I got tested, in the last 7 days twice already. And luckily here in Florida, you can go to CVS and you go on the drive-through line and it takes, 15, 20 minutes. I feel for you guys there in New York. It's crazy, you know, what you guys are going through. But I told you guys this before. Look, I have on this building here that I'm in right now, in my house, I have a generator on there. The reason I have the generator is not because I want to use the generator. It's because if I lose electricity, I don't go. I can still work, okay, and my computers work and everything works. If you're a bodybuilder at this point, this thing is not going away at this point. You have to go buy equipment so that you can at least do basic stuff. If you have a barbell, okay, with 220 to 300 pounds of plates, okay, you can do everything with that. You can squat. You could, you know, you might have to have someone lift it up to you if you don't have a power rack. But if you have that kind of weight, you can do everything. You can do bent over rows. You can do chest. You can do shoulder presses. You can do squats. That's everything right there. That's everything. You don't need anything else but a barbell and weight and plates. You don't need dumbbells. You don't need anything. You could do every basic core exercise with that setup. And so I don't know why, if you're a top, or you consider yourself a top level bodybuilder, someone who wants to achieve something great in bodybuilding, why you wouldn't just go out and buy a barbell set and accumulate plates. You don't have to buy all new plates. You can try to find some used plates and stuff like that, but that stuff's available. Machines, you know, are tougher and they're more expensive and they take up a lot more space. But a basic setup like that is not expensive and you can do everything. If you squat, okay, you're not going to lose your leg size. Okay. If you bench press, incline bench press, you know, you're not going to lose your size. I see guys doing it off the floor, but I mean, you might want to invest in a bench too, you know, that can be adjusted up and down. So this way you can do shoulders, you can do, you know, inclines, you can do, you know, flat bench press. And you can, and then of course for back, you can do rowing with that barbell. You can row 10 sets for your back workout. And I guarantee you, your back will not get any smaller. It might even grow better because you're doing core basic free weight movements. So guys, think about it. This is not going away. Have it in your house for a rainy day. If they decide to quarantine us for 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever it is, you're not going to be without weights. All right. That's my rant for the show. Let's talk about Titan. Our good friends at Titan Medical have a new formula out. It's called the Airase therapy. And it's interesting because it's a pill, actually. It's not an injectable. And it contains I'm trying to pronounce it right. It's semaglutide or glutide. What it is it's a GLP-2 peptide. And what those do, they're glucagon-like peptides that are found in the gut normally. They make you feel full, so you don't feel starving all the time. They improve blood sugar. They improve output of insulin by the pancreas. And these things have been used in the diabetes, you know, control pharmacological world right now. They're getting pretty popular. And Titan is offering that as a weight loss formula because it definitely inhibits your appetite in a healthy way. And it does improve blood sugar levels. I think there's a little chromium and B12 in there. So if you check that out, people are always asking me what's the newest stuff out from Titan. That is the newest weight loss formula that they are going to be putting out there, which is also a blood sugar control formula as well. And you can combine that, even if you're on insulin therapy, you can combine it with that. Or if you're just kind of like watching your carbs, you can combine it with that as well, and you're going to get better blood sugar control. So check that out. And the Species Nutrition Sale will take place on Christmas, but we haven't decided exactly what we're going to be doing. But I have some great ideas, so stay tuned for that, and I'll announce that on our Instagram and all that usual social media places.
So let's go to the questions. Of course, the first 2 questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Dave, I have a kid I was trying to help who's a wrestler. He was having issues with bad twitching cramps during states last year, state tournament. Also has been an issue for myself as well on stage. I took some salt last year and looked a bit flat. So I guess he wants some advice to, you know, for twitch cramps.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, what a lot of people don't realize is that, you know, if you're getting a little twitchy or the muscles locking on you, a lot of times that's electrolyte depletion. And wrestlers are notorious for trying to like cut weight. And when they do that, you know, most of those guys, they don't eat or drink anything, or they'll cut their sodium back just so they can do anything to try to, you know, get the fluid out of their body to drop, you know, weight. And then they make weight and then they start eating again. But a lot of times they don't restore electrolytes properly. They'll drink fluids, but they're not putting back enough sodium. So if your son is, you know, depleting to make weight in wrestling, and that's why he's getting cramps while he's wrestling, what you might want to do is try to add a lot more salt back into his his fluids that he's drinking after he makes weight, whether you're salting your food with Himalayan sea salts or just regular salt for that matter, or drinking, Gatorade Zeros. See, the problem with Gatorade is that it does have sugar in it. So I like the Gatorade Zeros better just to put the electrolytes back in. But like I said, you can use regular table salt. And literally, before he goes and wrestles, he might want to take 4 ounces of water and put a teaspoon of salt in there and just guzzle that down just so that it's, maybe 15, 20 minutes before he wrestles. Also, that'll add a hydration level. I know Stan Efferding and I have talked about hydration. He's really big on salt water, like almost not really literal salt water, but salt in your drink or your intra-workout drink or pre-workout drink prior to lifting so that you don't get, tear muscles and you have good hydration in the muscles. It's obviously, if you're going on stage and getting cramps, that's also usually a sodium depletion, assuming you're using the right diuretic, in which case you can literally take half a teaspoon or a teaspoon of salt, put it in maybe 2 ounces of water and just shoot it down like a shot, maybe 15 minutes before you go on stage. And that'll also balance your electrolytes and inhibit the cramping. And that's pretty effective. I've used that, pretty reliably. I don't really cut sodium that much on my people I work with. So they don't usually have that problem. But if they do, that's exactly how I'll solve it.
Second question, again, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Dave, I have a client that's taking phenylfibrate and says eating fats with is making it not work as well. Can taking omega lyes and mac oil and other fats like peanut butter and whole eggs going to make it harder for him to lose body fat?
No, whenever you take a nutritional supplement or a prescription drug that says don't take with fats, because sometimes the fats can bind to them or something like that and prevent them from working, just don't take them at the same time. I am on thyroid replacement because I don't have a thyroid gland anymore. It was removed, if you guys remember. So they tell you to take I guess it's not really synthroid. It's like synthetic. It's generic T4. So I take that in the morning, but they say don't take any food with it, okay, because it can inhibit its absorption. And obviously, since I have no thyroid of my own, I don't want to risk that. So I wake up first thing in the morning, I pop that pill, and then I'll wait a half hour, and I'll take the rest of whatever. I'll take my Ramipril for blood pressure. But same thing with fiber. I take obviously fiber lyes twice a day. I don't take the fiber lyes because it can combine up fats. I don't take it at the same exact time that I take my omega lyes, which is my essential fatty acid supplement. It doesn't mean that you can't take them in the same day, that they're going to inhibit each other. It just means don't take them at the same time when they go through so they don't go through the digestive tract at the same time. Same thing with this. Just you can take your essential fats and it's not going to affect how the drug functions. Just don't take them at the exact same time and have them be in your stomach at the same time.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not already following us, our handle is official_RxMuscle. If you're watching us for the first time on YouTube, hit the subscribe button below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our shows, segments, or updates. Later on today, we have our interview being dropped. NPC Nationals overall winner, Carlos Thomas. A lot of revealing details. For those of you who might not know, Carlos and Dave actually have worked together in the past. Dave, was slipping him a lot of advice during the run-up to the NPC Nationals. And then, of course, Carl's talking about his big victory, winning the overall crown, and then, of course, his plans for the pro level as far as perhaps where you might see him on a pro stage for his pro debut. So that drops today. Again, if you haven't already subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button. Comment below, that helps. And as always, we appreciate all of your support. Let's go to Excellent 187. Dave, whenever I gain weight, I typically put most of it on my stomach, hips, butts, thighs, being an endomorph. How can I have a successful off-season, increase food, put on as much muscle as possible, and yet avoid putting on too much fat in those areas?
Everyone has their trouble areas. And I tell this to people all the time. Usually, if you make a generalized statement, usually in women who are premenopausal before they've hit menopause, they put on their weight around their hip size, area. But men usually around the love handles in the back, and maybe the front, aspect of the stomach. And that's just a male and female fat distribution pattern. It doesn't matter what you do. When you gain your fat, that's where men and that's where women usually gain it. Women after menopause will tend to have more of a male pattern of fat distribution. But there's nothing you can really do for that, other than minimize how much fat you put on your body. So if I'm working with an athlete and I see them having rolls hanging off the side of their, obliques, I might cut back their carbs a little. I might give them a little cardio. I usually like to let people grow. In other words, when they're eating and they're training heavy and workouts are going well and they're adding body weight, I don't usually like to stop that process from happening by cutting carbs or giving them too much cardio, because then that can inhibit muscle gains too. But when they start getting really sloppy looking, where, I'm thinking, they may be making more fat gains than they are muscle gains. What I do is I will cut the carbs back usually first. If that doesn't work, I might even throw a little cardio. A lot of times I'll work with guys off season and we'll hit like the 12 or 13 week mark of growing, and they just get a little sloppy. And I'm like, you know what? They put on 12 weeks worth of muscle. It's okay to add a little cardio in now, or cut their carbs back a little bit and trim them back a little bit while they're still eating a lot of food. So it really depends. It's hard to say. There's a supplement you could take that's going to prevent you from putting on love handles or having trouble areas. It just doesn't exist, other than the fact that you have to constantly keep monitoring how you're growing. And are you at a stage where maybe you're getting too much body fat? It's going to make dieting hard. Or are you really putting on a lot of muscle and maybe you're just a little bloated, And you can check that out also by cutting carbs back. If you lose the fluid and you look better and tighter, then okay, he's all right. You don't have too much fat. Let's keep going. But it's a trial and error. It's constantly monitoring, and that's why it's good to have a coach off season. Off season is easy, you think, because, there's not that many changes that need to be made. But really, you're paying the coach off season to make sure that you don't get sloppy, and that you continue to make enough muscle gains, because a lot of times you'll hit a plateau and you're not even really checking your body weight because you don't have anyone to check in with, and then before you know it, you went through a whole off season, you put on 5 pounds. So it's good to have a coach preseason, pre-contest and off season in that sense.
Let's go to Tui Photo. Does caffeine negate the effects of creatine monohydrate in the body due to its diuretic effects?
Yes and no. I mean, obviously you want a well-hydrated muscle. Does caffeine dehydrate the muscle cell itself? Probably not if you're not doing it excessively. It's more than likely pulling fluid from the subcutaneous compartment. But if you're not drinking enough fluids, obviously that could be a problem. Creatine, when it gets absorbed into the muscle cell, it pulls fluid with it. So the creatine actually holds the fluid inside the cell. So even if you are on some kind of a diuretic, you'll still keep your muscles more hydrated than they would if they were not on creatine. Now, you don't want to be taking creatine if you're not drinking anything like pre-contest. You can damage your kidneys that way. But caffeine will not negate the effects of creatine in that sense. Plus, creatine also, has that energy buffering effect by increasing the buffering capacity of the ATP in the cell. So when your cells use ATP as a fuel source, they get converted as a waste product to ADP, and then creatine helps regenerate that ADP back into ATP to be used. So you're still getting that effect, even if you are a little dehydrated. But by and far, if you're on creatine and you're drinking enough fluids, even with a cup or two of coffee or an energy drink, you really shouldn't be too dehydrated.
Let's go to Pantelis Dermatzakis. For an advanced level bodybuilder, in order to get muscle gain, should he increase the weight and his strength, or is there a different approach?
One more time, read that, Sid.
So no, for advanced level bodybuilders, talking about in terms of making muscle gains, should they increase the weight? And it says strength as well, but I mean, let's talk about weight. Okay. Should he increase the weight, or is there a different approach?
I mean, you have to overload the muscle if you want to grow. I mean, you can eat all the food you want and you can take all the drugs you want. Unless the muscle cell gets broken down and the body sees or senses that it needs to improve the strength of the cell and the size of the cell because it doesn't want to break down as easily next time, that's the initiating factor that causes that. Now, if you're not lifting heavy enough and the muscles feel like, hey, we can handle this weight at the level of muscularity we're at right now, that really wasn't that bad. Yeah, he's doing a lot of reps, but it's not really taxing us. Then the muscles won't get bigger. So in a sense, you have to make the muscles feel like they have to work harder. Does that mean you have to always up the weight on your bench press? No, because there's other ways of making the muscle feel like the weight is heavier. Doing, forced reps, slow negatives, superset, there's different other intensifying techniques that you can use when you train that can have a very similar effect. But obviously, lifting heavier weights using good form and full range of motion is the most effective way to build muscle mass. And once again, your body is not a machine, so it's not going to progressively, constantly get stronger, 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 and you're going to grow, according to the graph, straight up. It doesn't happen. You grow in spurts, then you hit plateaus, then you grow in spurts, you hit plateaus. So when you hit plateaus, you have to figure out, why am I hitting a plateau? Am I not pushing hard enough in the gym? Am I not eating enough? Am I not taking the right supplements? Or does my body just need a little break and I need to kind of take a step back, let it recuperate, and then push hard again? And once again, that's another thing that a coach is going to help you with, telling you when to back off, when to push. And sometimes you have to just listen to your body. If your body says, hey, I just don't feel it anymore, I feel like I'm worn out, I need more rest, take another day off, sleep a little bit more. And a lot of times that'll get you through it. More than likely, a lot of times when people hit, some little, bumps in the road, so to speak, it's because they're getting sick and they don't even realize it, because as bodybuilders, we think we're invulnerable, especially when we're on a cycle. If you can't eat, or something doesn't feel right, or you're not strong in the gym, it must be due to something that your coach didn't tell you to do properly. I get these guys telling me, I think something's wrong with, all of a sudden I'm weak. All I want to do is sleep. I'm like, did you think maybe you're sick? And then of course the next day they have a fever and then they're laying in bed. But we're not invulnerable. Listen to your body.
So Dave, let me jump in real quick, because I think there's another angle of this question that he may or may not have been inferencing, but there's a point at which, all right, even if you're an advanced level bodybuilder, you've gotten to a point where, all right, what's that sweet spot, right, between being a bodybuilder and a power lifter, right? I mean, like, take yourself as, at what point do you realize, all right, I'm not going beyond this level of weight, in I guess in terms of what I'm trying to do in terms of my muscular development.
Right. I didn't see any limit when I was lifting, in the sense that if I can do 4 good reps, and I can get the weight up, then I'm doing something good. If I'm not going into the gym and doing singles, in other words, I'm not doing 1 rep, to see how heavy I can lift. That's not building muscle. But if I could, I really want to squat 400 pounds. The most I've done is 385. I'm going to try 400. Can you spot me? And you get 1 or 2 reps out, maybe 1 rep and 1 rep with a spot. That's good, because then the next time you go into the gym, you might get 4 reps yourself with it. So you're always wanting to try to get to the next level and push a little harder. I think once you have the amount of sheer mass that you need, and unfortunately for most of us, we look in the mirror, we never think we're big enough. But assuming hey, you know what? I'm doing well at shows. I don't really need to add a ridiculous amount of size anymore. I need more quality muscle now, or I need more muscle maturity. Now you don't necessarily have to worry about, constantly upping the weight. Now it's more about squeezing and hitting angles and trying to really intensify the weight that you're using. So when I first did 405 for 3 or 4 reps, it was nothing close to when I was able to do 405 for 8 reps with good form, controlled descent, pausing at the bottom. I got more out of the set when I was able to do that. It was the same weight, right? But I got more out of it because now I can handle the weight better. And so that's what you have to say in your head. You don't always have to increase the number, but you have to increase the intensity of what you're doing.
Let's go to bodybuilding and wrestling. Dave, when training back and other exercises, I feel like I can't go fully heavy on some exercises like bend over rows. I can move the weight, but I can't contract or feel the muscle. I can go a bit lighter, but I can rack up more than 12 reps. Should I add more exercises, more sets to make it more intense?
I would work out with this group of guys for a period while I was training, like earlier in my career, and I was putting on good size at the time. And we would always we would do skull crushes. It's like that easy curl bar. You hold it here, so you're laying down, it's over your head, and you're kind of extending it to get like that tricep flex. I couldn't feel those things for anything. It didn't matter how much weight I put in there. I could not feel them. If I went light, I could kind of feel my triceps working, but I knew they weren't getting enough of a workout to put any size on. And now I have a very long arm. And most of the guys I was training with at the time were short arms, almost like Lee Priest length arms. And so their movement was like this. And they were locking out, and I could see their triceps were like hanging out of their shirt. because that exercise was well suited for them. For my physique, that wasn't a good exercise. And for me to try to keep doing that exercise to try to get the benefits that they're getting out of it was ridiculous. So I had to change the exercise. So sometimes an exercise is just not the right exercise for your body. And or you just don't know how to do it properly. Like when I first started incline bench pressing, I was absolutely rolling my shoulders forward and using my front delts too much when the weight would get heavy. And so I was never really training my upper pecs how to do things right. I had to go back to the drawing board and start with one plate again, 135, and I had to just really focus on just squeezing my pecs, keeping my chest up, elevated in the air until I couldn't do any more. When that pec couldn't work anymore, I did not cheat with my front delts. That was the end of the set. And I had to retrain myself how to do the exercise. So there's two scenarios. One is that you don't know how to train the exercise or do the exercise properly or use your muscles properly because you're cheating. Another one is it's just not an exercise that's built for your body, in which case you find something else. There's a million exercises to do. You don't have to do an exercise just because everyone else does it. Make sense?
Yeah, let's go to Aesthetics Nutrition. How long does it take to reduce creatinine levels and improve GFR numbers from kidney damage?
That's a good question. There's two organs in our body that are obviously very vital to detoxification and cleansing, and that's the liver, which detoxifies all everything in the bloodstream, and then the kidneys, which kind of get rid of these toxins out, through the urine. Both of those organs have an ability to regenerate, which is smart. Whoever came up with that idea, right? Because they're being taxed all the time. The liver regenerates very quickly. It really responds very fast. As long as you haven't done permanent damage to it, like with this scar tissue laid down or sclerotic tissue, as we call it, you're usually okay. The kidneys regenerate, but at a much slower rate. So when I get guys come to me with high creatinine levels and I put them on my 3-week detox, which I offer for free. If anyone wants to reach out to me, I'll send you a copy of it. One of the components in there is something called kidney stuff. I don't make it, but I sell it on my DavePalumbo.com website. And it works by reducing the inflammation around the kidney tubules. So it opens them up essentially and allows the kidneys to filter better. But the kidneys take a while to regenerate. So you can't expect your creatinine levels to drop like in 2 weeks after doing or 3 weeks after doing the detox. They'll improve, but they're going to take longer because the kidneys take longer. And I usually tell people, give it a good 6 months before those kidneys regenerate themselves, which means you probably shouldn't be pounding your body with tons of protein. I would keep your protein intake no more than like 150 to 200. If your creatinine is like over 1.5, 1.6, which is way too high, shouldn't be over 135 or 1.35 really. That's kind of like the limit for bodybuilders. If you're in the like 1.5, 1.6, 1.7 or higher, that's the dangerous area. So you want to keep that down. Now, take also into account, make sure if you're taking creatine, a creatine supplement, that can sometimes artificially raise the creatinine level. So make sure you're off of that when you're getting your blood test done. Sometimes training can elevate it a little bit, but not really that much. If you're really concerned about the creatinine level, you can also go get a test called cystatin C. You have to ask for it. They have to check it, put it on a special checkbox. Cystatin C levels are really more definitive for kidney damage. So even if your creatinine is a little high and then you get your cystatin C levels checked and they're normal, you're probably okay. I would still do the detox just to give your kidneys a break, but there's no long-term damage there. It's more of a short-term or acute type of inflammation that's going on in the area. But give yourself time. I would do the 3-week detox, stay on the kidney stuff product, retest in 4 weeks, and then every 4 weeks after that until those levels come down into under 1.35. And once you get them under 1.35, your kidneys are kind of back, to functioning at a decent rate. So that's the protocol I usually use with people. And I don't think there's been a single person that I've worked with that we haven't gotten their kidney function back to normal. Now, I haven't had anyone come to me, who's got a creatinine of 11, except Boston Lloyd, who's Boston Lloyd. But most people have more, slightly high creatinines, which is when you want to address it. You don't want to wait till you're in the 2s or 3s and then have to try to figure out how do I solve that problem. So a lot of times it might not be, it might not be able to be reversed at that point. But once again, it's how long has the problem existed? That's the key.
Let's go to Bulk to Hulk. Reason why you would want to run your DECA, or run them equal amounts.
Okay. Now, just say that again, Sid.
Yeah.
I'm engineering the show today because Tyler's on vacation. So sorry.
Reason you would want to run your test higher than your EQ/DECA, or run them equal amounts.
Gotcha. There's a lot of debate about this, obviously, out there, and the reason there is because people don't really understand, how these compounds work. Anabolic steroids were developed so that there's a higher anabolic or muscle building component with a less androgenic component, which is like kind of the secondary sex characteristic, aggressive, aspect of the drug, Also glycogen storing. Higher the androgen content, the better you store glycogen. That's why people use halotestin prior to a show. But the anabolics by and far are higher anabolic, less androgenic, and that's so they have a better ratio of building muscle. But when you reduce the androgenic component of a drug, you also reduce the anabolic component. So even though DECA, or Masteron have a very high anabolic to androgenic, ratio, they're still less anabolic than testosterone. So testosterone is the highest anabolic. I guess if you were going to score the anabolic, potency of a drug, testosterone is the highest. So you don't want to reduce, so when you're coming up with a drug stack, you want testosterone to be the main muscle building drug. The only reason we add a second drug, or a third drug, is because we know that when you stack or take more than one drug, you stack steroids, they work better. So 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals like 3 or 5 or 7. So they amplify each other. So you take your testosterone as your main base drug because that's the most anabolic. And then you take another anabolic steroid, whether it be EQ or DECA or Masteron or whatever, Dianabol. So because those drugs will add to that anabolic component without adding a ton of more androgen to the issue. And to give you an example of what too much androgen might do to you, and we're talking about men here, not women, of course. Think about what you feel like when you take testosterone and Trenbolone, right? A lot of times you can't sleep at night. Sometimes people get digestive issues. They get high blood pressure. It's because the Trenbolone compound is actually, they say it's 4 times more androgenic than testosterone. So it's got a very high androgen content. So you're adding a ton more androgen on top of the testosterone that's already androgenic. So sometimes that could be a problem in certain people. It's just too much. So in my experience, and once again, I know everyone out there, and especially young people today, want to try to reinvent the wheel and find a better way to do things because they think, that there's things that we haven't thought about. Believe me, I spent a long time thinking about what the best way to take steroids were. I read every book. I experimented on myself. The best way to grow is have a good base of testosterone at around 1,000 milligrams per week and stack that with an anabolic. And what the anabolic should be about 300 to 600 milligrams, max per week together. And off-season, 2 drugs works very well. Especially if you add a little growth hormone on top of that, you'll get a nice effect. Pre-contest, usually I like to use 3 compounds because I don't like to go quite as high on like the DECA and the EQ. I like to use more like, the slightly weaker anabolics like Masteron, Winstrol, we used to use Primabol, and there's really Primabol that's real anymore. But those drugs are not quite as strong as EQ and DECA, so we might use I like to use 3 compounds as opposed to 2. And that's really what it amounts to. Your testosterone is everything. Now if you're a guy who just wants to put a little size on and look ripped for the beach, that's a different scenario. You don't need to take as much testosterone. But I'm talking about the guys who want to maximize gains, with the least amount of side effects, health-wise and just just feeling good-wise. That's the way to do it.
Take a couple of more questions. Let's go to Swift 1982, good one here. Aside from Dorian Yates and Flex Lewis, here's a question: is somebody that's Welsh considered British, or?
Yeah, because you're part of the UK. Yeah.
Okay. No, I understand that, but somebody. It's as if to say somebody who's from Northern Ireland, they're not British. right? Anyway,
they're under the UK,
the United
or British
Kingdom, right? But anyway,
rule. But yeah, they're not from England or anything like that.
To anyone from that area, do you consider yourself Welsh, Northern Ireland, or Northern Irish, or do you consider yourself British? Comment below. Anyway.
Why don't you just make the question, English? How about that?
Let's go with that. There you go. It's a better way to word it. Aside from Dorian Flex Lewis, who do you think the best and most underrated British bodybuilders are to not win more?
There's Ernie Taylor was a great English bodybuilder from the UK. I mean, he was really good. I think Ian Harrison could have been great had he continued. He stopped at a very young age. You go back and watch the interview I did with him about a year or so ago. He'll give you the whole story of what he went through. I mean, he was like, they were touting him as the next Dorian. I don't know if he would have ever been the next Dorian, but he was really good. He had a really good structure. He was big. He was freaky too, So, I mean, Luke Sandow, may he rest in peace, had he not passed, could have been one of the great UK bodybuilders. I mean, Nathan Diasha, same thing. There's a lot. I think today there's a lot of great guys, out there who are going to probably go on to, achieve greatness. Obviously, Dorian will always be the most famous, I think. I don't know if anyone will ever outshine him, unless some freak comes out of the woodwork and, wins, 7 Mr. Olympias. But, I mean, Dorian was the guy everyone wanted to be there, right? I mean, that's really what it amounted to.
Carbs machine, best way to run Tren E.
Now we just talked about Trenbolone, a few minutes ago, but there's basically fast acting and slow acting Trenbolone. There's the Trenbolone, acetate, which most bodybuilders really love to use because it makes them aggressive, makes them strong in the gym. It stores glycogen well. It's a great pre-contest drug. Probably not the right drug to use off season, even though I have guys use it, and I know guys use it all the time because you feel good on it. The Trenbolone enanthate ester is probably a better option off season because it doesn't hit you quite as hard, and I don't think you get quite the central nervous system stimulating effects that you get from the acetate, because the acetate hits you so fast after the shot that it wires you almost. Whereas the enanthate is kind of like working in the background because it's a long-acting ester. I believe it or not, 200 milligrams per week of Trenbolone enanthate is more than enough. And the good thing about Tren enanthate, believe it or not, is, as you know, I sell these roid test kits on DavePalumbo.com, which you can check your steroids to see if they're real, and you can see what compounds you're really using. And if you don't do that, you're nuts. You're looking for some stocking stuffers to buy your boyfriend or your whatever significant other. It's a great little gift because they're not that expensive, and you can check your drugs. Everyone should check their drugs because it's silly, number one, to waste your money. Secondly, you don't want to be, not taking anything. And thirdly, you don't want to be taking the wrong thing, especially if you're a woman. You think you're taking Anavar, you don't want to be taking Dianabol. So, that's a problem right there. But one of the testers actually will test. We have what's called a semi-quantitative test. It'll actually tell you how much of the drug is in there. And the Trenbolone enanthate, there's a Trenbolone enanthate test kit that actually will tell you how much Trenbolone enanthate is in the test kit. So you can kind of even see if you're being dosed properly. I'm really high. If I was competing nowadays, I probably would stick more with Trenbolone enanthate, more so than the acetate, because I think there's less, once again, blood pressure raising effects and less digestive issues with that because of the fact that it's a long acting in the background type of situation. And you can test it to see if what you got is actually real.
Relentless Lucas, at your biggest, what were your measurements? Arms, quads, chest, etc.
I don't really know them all, to be honest with you. We weren't so obsessed with that back then. I know that I think someone measured my quads at 33 and a half inches at one point, which was pretty big. And I know my arm, we measured arms back then because everyone was obsessed with arms, right? Because I always wanted a 20-inch arm. And then, of course, then after that, you want more. My arms are 22 and a half inches, both of them. I think one was like a quarter of an inch bigger or something like that. I don't remember which one it was. Probably my left arm. And I don't think I know my neck was really good. When I would go for suits, I had like a 21-inch neck or something like that. My neck was really big. I don't remember what my chest measurement was. And my waist, believe it or not, even though I had abdominal distension issues, I had a small, when you measure your waist underneath your obliques, it was actually pretty small. It was actually like 33 or 34 inches. But like I said, I don't really, my thing that I always wanted bigger, and I don't remember what the measurement was. I always wanted wider shoulders. I always said if I had wide shoulders, that would have solved my structural problems. And that's why I think Jay Cutler was such a great Mr. Olympia, because he might have the widest shoulders of all bodybuilding of all time. The guy he doesn't even have a small waist, but it doesn't matter because his shoulders are like here. So his taper looks good. And I think that's when I'm looking at guys to see if they're going to be great bodybuilders, in the future, I always look at their bone structure. And if you looked at Phil Heath's bone structure, he's got very kind of narrow clavicles, kind of like I do. I never would have thought, just seeing him as a kid, that he would be a guy who would go into Mr. Olympia. But you see some kids, even young teenagers, they have these wide shoulders, and it's like, that's a perfect structure for bodybuilding, because you're always going to have a good waist taper. I see it in women too. I see women that are very broad, and sometimes it doesn't, our society is so weird, especially when we were kids, broad women didn't look good, right? But now women wear used to wear shoulder pads to make their self look like they have a small waist. It's great for figure. Well, actually, all the divisions, you want to have broad shoulders because it gives you better, shoulder to waist ratio. So I guess there is obviously validity to measure that stuff. And I think till the end of time, we'll always measure arms as a male, because everyone wants to have over 20-inch arm. Nowadays, everyone wants to have over 22-inch arm, 23-inch arm. But a 22-inch arm is a very big arm, especially if it's solid and not fat. I had that was my, contest, arm. So yeah, it's fun to see progress and to see how you're growing and all that good stuff.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. On behalf of our entire team here, Merry Christmas to all of you who are going to be celebrating over the course of this upcoming weekend. You get Christmas on a Saturday, so you get the entire weekend. Hope you all enjoy it with family, friends, and hope you have a lot of memory-filled moments this upcoming weekend. For Dave Palumbo, our entire team here at RX Muscle, Merry Christmas. We'll see you next week.